Hello guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan and today I'm going to be discussing the huge situation with Mike Babcock, Mitch Marner, and the huge allegations that are surrounding Babcock right now. And if you've been on the channel for a while, you know the whole watch till the end to find out thing. I'm just going to skip all of that because this is a situation that quite frankly needs to be talked about more. Now, Mike Babcock is no longer the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and since his firing, we've seen a ton of different people, saying that he's a bad coach, he's a bad person, stuff like that. But we haven't heard like a huge allegation of him doing seriously bad stuff with Toronto until last night. Now, this situation is all alleged, so keep that in mind, but Ian Tulloch of The Athletic, who reports this, has a lot of multiple reporters that are saying the same thing. So right now it is true. But back in 2017, Mike Babcock did some really terrible stuff with Toronto, and specifically Mitch Marner. Now this whole situation really blew up when James, Account for Hockey, shared this screenshot from a Toronto Sun article that was posted earlier yesterday. Now the article said this: "One tale was related to us in the past few days that is said to have occurred in the 2016-2017 season, during the annual Father's Trip. Babcock was alleged to have asked one of the Leafs rookies to list the players on the team from hardest working to those, in the eyes of the rookie, didn't have a strong work ethic. The rookie did so, not wanting to upset his coach, but was taken aback when Babcock told the players who had been listed at the bottom." And then this situation blew up even more when again Ian Tulloch of The Athletic shared this: "I heard about this Babcock story when it happened, but I didn't want to bring it up until I could confirm it was true. The rookie he did this to was Toronto Maple Leafs forward Mitch Marner." Which means during the 2016-2017 season, Mitch Marner's rookie year, during the annual Father's Trip, Mike Babcock asked Mitch Marner to rank the most hardworking players on the team. And this will be if he didn't end up releasing the list to his players, but Mike Babcock, after Mitch Marner submitted that list, ended up telling the players at the bottom who they were and that it was Mitch Marner who made that list. A 19-year-old rookie was just exposed like that in front of all of his different teammates, and according to Ian Tulloch, the Leafs rightfully fought back. Now, Ian Tulloch also made an article on the Leafs Nation that had a couple of big info as well. In this article, it is stated that Mitch Marner put himself as the lowest on the team, and that him and Mike Babcock agreed to work harder away from the puck. But what wasn't told to Mitch Marner was that the two lowest players on this list, besides him, that being Tyler Bozak and Nazem Kadri, were both told individually by Mike Babcock that the 19-year-old rookie put him low on his list of hardworking players. And that is an absolute travesty. And if you thought this situation couldn't get any worse, well, I have news for you, because it gets worse. I don't know how it does, but it does. In the same article, Ian Tulloch said this: "According to multiple sources, Marner was in tears after the details of his list were shared, while his teammates were furious, specifically about Mike Babcock. They couldn't believe their head coach would put a 19-year-old in that situation, especially considering how well-liked Marner was in the dressing room." Now, according to this article, the same situation happened in Detroit with another young forward when Mike Babcock was there. In the same article, he says this: "According to one source, a nearly identical situation happened during Babcock's time in Detroit, involving a young Red Wings forward. The source explained that Babcock asked the player questions about his teammates that were similar to the ones he would ask Marner, and then promptly shared the answers with the rest of the team." And that is egregious, because with this whole situation, we pretty much get it confirmed that this is not the only time he does it, which makes sense, but we never got confirmation until this article. And now with Mitch Marner, presumably a young forward in Detroit, that's not inconsistent. He's done that both times in the two teams he's recently coached for, and that is even more bad on his record. And it would be a little bit excusable if, let's say, this was a one-off thing, that he was just decided to be stupid one day and somehow think was a good idea. But this is not a one-off thing. Again, he was allegedly doing the same thing in Detroit. He's been this mean to players and been this almost abusive to players in the past. He made a 19-year-old rookie in Mitch Marner cry in front of his freaking teammates. That's not something that a somewhat sane coach will do. Even have some level of sanity, you can't think that's a good idea. Now, obviously, that season it ended up working. They made the playoffs and everything, but it obviously strained the relationship in some of those players, like Mitch Marner, like Nazem Kadri, and Tyler Bozak, who were both mentioned in the article as guys that went against that type of plan. They're both off the team and aren't looking back either. And there was a great point made yesterday that, especially with Mitch Marner, making Mitch Marner cry, a 19-year-old Canadian kid, a rookie in the NHL, and you do that to him. How is it even tangible? How do you go and process that and think that, one, that's good for your team morale, and two, good for the 19-year-old rookie? How is that going to help the kid? That's not, it's just not. Embarrassing like him like that, making him cry in front of teammates, that's something that the teammates in Toronto obviously pushed back on, and again, rightfully so. And just imagining what he did to a 19-year-old Canadian kid in Mitch Marner, I can't even imagine what he could have possibly done to a guy like Wylie Nylander, this weird Swedish prospect kid coming up through the ranks. And to put a 19-year-old Canadian kid in that position, who is an obvious fan favorite, an obvious team favorite, a locker room guy for Toronto, to put him through something like that, to portray him like that, is just egregious. And it's obvious that Mike Babcock is not a nice coach, and that's fine. You don't have to be a nice coach, and that could work. But to do something like this, to betray your player, your 19-year-old rookie, so hard like this, that's not just not nice. That is egregious. That is criminal. That is almost borderline abusive to a guy like that, who's that young, that inexperienced, and doesn't know any better. How could you put a player through that at that young age? It still baffles me. I've sucked on this, I've thought about this, and I still don't understand why he'd do it. And we've seen ex-NHL players just rip on his case, as they should. We saw Mike Commadore go on a Twitter tirade after all the situations that he was with when he was coached by Mike Babcock. The original story goes that Mike Commadore had a meeting with Mike Babcock alongside the benches in Detroit in his last NHL game there, and he was meeting with Mike Babcock, and Mike Babcock just said, "Hey, that ice looks pretty nice, right? Well, that'll be the last time you step foot in it in the NHL." And it was something like that. Obviously, it's a transcript. I don't know exactly how it was worded, but it was something like that. It was that egregious, and that obviously left a bad taste in Mike Commodore's mouth. But it's not just Mike Commadore. It's a lot of other NHL players, ex-NHL players, who spoke out against him. And we also saw Mark Fraser, a former defenseman for the Toronto Maple Leafs, speaking out against Mike Babcock, who also went on a Twitter tirade, and it was just beautiful. Now, a couple of tweets I'll highlight here are probably the biggest ones, where he said this: "We share stories throughout the years with each other and of those outside the locker rooms. You'll never truly understand some of the terrible, undeserving things Babs has done to some of his players. You don't have to like all your coaches, but he is one who 95% of his players can't say a good thing about. With the ability to end players' careers, he's chosen to do so long-serving vets that have resulted in all of his players turning against him. He's used his power to turn teammates against each other and choose to continuously." And again, if this was a one-off thing, then maybe we could get away with it. But with this Mitch Marner situation, with Mark Fraser saying 95% of his players can't even say a good thing about him, that's insane. Now, obviously, I don't think it's 95%. That's a rough estimate there. But even if it's rough, let's say it's like 80% of his players, let's say, that can't say one good thing about him as a coach or a person. That's not a great sign. I'm just saying. Now, with all these stories coming out, I love, or actually I kind of hate circling back to his situation and story with Mike Modano in Detroit. Now, this is one of his more well-known stories, but not for a good reason. Now, Mike Modano, Dallas Stars legend. You guys know the Dallas Stars are my favorite team in the National Hockey League. Mike Modano ended up signing for 1 year in Detroit as a prove-me deal, you know, trying to get another cup with Detroit to see what happens, right? It obviously sucked that he was in Detroit, but that milestone of 1,500 games was totally in reach. The last game of the season for Mike Modano, he set at 1,499 NHL games. Well, the 1,500 game, that would have been a 1,500 game. Mike Babcock ended up healthy scratching him and putting him in the press box to watch it all. You can still see on his page, he has 1,499 NHL games, and as a Dallas Stars fan, it sucks my soul every single day, and it still makes me sad. I feel like I keep repeating it, but once again, it would be okay if this was a one-off thing, you know, him being a jerk one time in his career. No, that's okay, that's fine. But again, circling back to this season, this NHL season, Jason Spezza, hometown kid, signed a 1-year minimum league deal with Toronto. As a Dallas Stars fan, he's not revolutionary or anything, but Jason Spezza, with his hometown team, he bought his whole family tickets to Scotiabank Arena and expected to play. And then Mike Babcock, healthy, scratched his butt and had his family watching just the Toronto Maple Leafs without Jason Spezza. And that kind of stuff, those little things. Not just him, you know, not playing Austin Matthews as much as he should. Not even just the game coaching things. The off-ice stuff, how he treats players, should just not be allowed. It's almost terrible. And to see him do this constantly, over and over again, makes all these NHL players turn on him and revolt against him, especially now. And in this situation, I think it could be really, really dangerous to call Mike Babcock a terrible person. He's a terrible person and treats everybody with disrespect. Because he might be a perfectly fine guy away from his team. He might be a great family guy, you know, treats everybody nicely. But the fact is that he is paid to coach, or was paid to coach the Toronto Maple Leafs. And when you have players like that, you can't treat them like dirt. You can't treat them like slaves. You can't make guys go through that kind of stuff. You can't just disrespect them when they're about to play their 15th ever game, or say, hey, my Commadore, look at the ice because that's your last NHL game of your career. You can't just go doing stuff like that and still be painted as this great picture, because right now he's getting dragged through the mud as he should. Because yes, he could be a fine guy off the ice, but he's paid to be a good coach for his team. And right now, while he was a good coach, made the playoffs for Toronto, he didn't treat them with any sort of respect. And especially a 19-year-old guy in Mitch Marner released all the info that he put out. He trusted Mike Babcock, and quite frankly, Mike Babcock betrayed him. And to be honest, even with Ian Tulloch having all this stuff, and Mike Commadore and Mark Fraser, I don't think it's going to be the last of what we hear on Mike Babcock. I don't think it's going to be even close to the last thing we hear of him. Even if he gets fired again, it doesn't even matter what happens. There will be more stories to leak, because it's only been a couple of days now that Mike Babcock has been fired. He's a free agent and everything. We'll see more stories leak out. We'll see more players actually having some guts and speaking out on this situation, as they should, because it just seems like Mike Babcock is doing these stuff to players on purpose to rile them or do something. I still don't know what the purpose is of being this mean and this against some players. It just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make him a good coach either. But for the most part, even though I knew that Mike Modano situation for a while, I always kind of thought that Mike Babcock was a hard-headed coach. You know, he was kind of mean and blunt and stuff like that. But I never expected him to go to this kind of level. With all these stories that are coming out, 95% of his players can't say one good thing about him. That's not a good sign, I must say. And it seems like for the Toronto Maple Leafs under Sheldon Keefe, they played the exact opposite. They've been unbelievable, they played fantastic hockey, and it looks like they're actually loving hockey again. Which, especially in the past year under Mike Babcock, hasn't exactly been the case. So it's just a lot of drama right now, and I also want to say that this is still alleged. Mike Commodore doesn't have any other sources besides himself, and Mark Fraser obviously saying the 95% estimate. It's not all true, and it's not all 100%. But with Ian Tulloch in that article, with what he did to Mitch Marner, I would say that's truthful, because he had multiple sources saying that it was the truth, multiple little details you can't really make up. And doing something like that, you know, it doesn't surprise me either of Mike Babcock. With how some of the relationships have been in Toronto, how some of them have been strained, especially with the younger players, it makes sense how he treated them. And quite frankly, he treated them like dog crap. And it's sad to see, because I think he was a decent coach for Toronto. He got a lot out of a lot of players, but with the way he treated some of those players, like Mitch Marner, it just can't be excused. And while I was already on the train of firing Mike Babcock and getting him away from the Toronto Maple Leafs, that was mostly for his coaching, and with the Toronto Maple Leafs kind of just giving up on him. With this new stories coming out, with all the stuff that's been said about him, I'm kind of just sitting back and saying, what even happened here? Like, how bad was this really? Because it did seem terrible. It seemed like there was a lot of relationships there that was directly correlated to Mike Babcock treating players terribly. It just seems like a bad situation and everything for Mitch Marner, Mike Babcock. It's just not ideal. And unfortunately, how all this came down, all the hate is against Mike Babcock, as I think a lot of it should be. But it's just sad. It's just sad that he would go through this, treat players like this, and this whole time do this to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But that'll be it for today's rants. But with this video and the recent drama coming back, I need to know your thoughts down those comments down below. Let me know what to think about this whole situation surrounding Mike Babcock, the allegations surrounding him and Mitch Marner. What do you think about the stories that were told, the players going out against him, and everything in this story? But if y'all want some more Grav videos just like this one, you guys should watch this video where I discuss Sheldon Keefe, my first impressions with him, and how he's doing as Leafs new head coach. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below your thoughts on this whole crazy situation surrounding Babcock and Marner. Share this video with your friends. Get the truth out there, boys. More people need to hear about this as well. But I'm Nathan, and I'll see you all in the next video or stream. Goodbye.